News that the Congressional Intelligence Committees are pushing back against a key part of President Obama's attempt to overhaul U.S. surveillance, saying it is unworkable. On Friday, President Obama said he wants bulk phone data stored outside of the NSA, raising questions about whether private companies should control a database of domestic phone calls.
I think that's a very difficult thing because the whole purpose of this program is to provide instantaneous information to be able to disrupt any plot that may be taking place.
We know that the private phone carriers don't want to handle this now. So I think that's going to be a real issue in terms of who has the capability other than NSA to handle this information, and particularly given the fact that the phone carriers want this.
California Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff, a senior member of the Intelligence Committee, thank you for joining us on this Monday.
You bet.
Listen, you're deeply involved in this. You proposed several pieces of legislation on this issue, including ending bulk phone record collection entirely. Just generally, start me with your impressions of what the president proposed.
Look, Brian, I think what the president proposed makes a lot of sense. He said that the government shouldn't be holding this vast amount of data, that it should be held either by a third party or by the telephone companies. I think we're inexorably moving towards a model where the telephone companies hold on to their own data. In my view, that really makes the most sense. They have to hold their data for their own business purposes anyway. So those that claim that, well, this would make it subject to subpoena by divorce lawyers or the telephone companies could be hacked, that's true, but that's true today. What I think the challenge will be is the Intelligence Committee will need to develop the technology where it can take information from multiple telephone companies that may be in different formats and get it to talk to each other. But that's not rocket science, and frankly, the intelligence community has proved capable of overcoming more difficult technical challenges than that. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
I'm sorry to interrupt because we only have a few minutes. What about the general resistance? Because you're assuming that they want to do this. And from all the things that I've read and the people that I've spoken to, the phone companies do not want this, and they want to fight it, and you'd have to legislate it. And on the other side, people say it's going to be very difficult to legislate this stuff.
No, I'm not saying that the telephone companies want to do this. They don't. This is a public relations problem for them. I think they were more than willing to do this when it wasn't a public issue for them, but now it is, and that's a threat to their business, and they don't need it. At the same time, they're holding on to this data anyway. In a criminal case, for example, when someone's murdered and a cell phone is obtained or stolen from the victim, we'll go to the phone company, the FBI, with a subpoena that says, who has this cell phone been in contact with? If the killer's still making calls on it, you can track down the killer.
Right.
So that's the model we use in the criminal justice system. There's no reason to use a different model in the intelligence community as well.
Well, I want to ask you, because the president gave the DOJ and others, I think, until end of March to come up with some ideas about a committee, and there's some pushback on the committee as well. And then in 2015, if nothing's done, this would end anyway, statutory-wise. What do we expect practically to happen over the next few months, or is this going to be years before we see anything happen?
Well, it won't be years because the program, as you point out, is sunsetted in the middle of next year. So in the absence of congressional action, this program goes away. And actually, I think the default, therefore, is the companies hold on to their own data. Because if a year from now we don't have an answer, Congress is unable to bridge these differences, the program sunsets, the companies end up holding their own data for their business purposes, and then we go to the companies when we need information on a number connected to a plot. So that may be where we're headed. There are some very strongly held, and the good news is not partisan differences, but nonetheless very strongly held differences on this. That's going to make it difficult for the Congress to get to yes.
I want to get quickly to Congressman Mike Rogers. We talk about Edward Snowden and what he did, and did he have help or did he not have help? NBC News has been told by investigators there's no evidence that suggests he got help from the Kremlin or anywhere else. Some people aren't so convinced. So have a quick listen here, and I want your reaction.
I believe there's a reason he ended up in the hands, the loving arms of an FSB agent in Moscow. I don't think that's a coincidence, number one. Number two, and let me just talk about this.
You think the Russians helped Ed Snowden?
I believe there's questions to be answered there. I don't think it was a gee whiz luck event that he ended up in Moscow.
Your thoughts on that, and also what do you think will happen to Mr. Snowden in the coming year?
Brian, the reality is we simply don't know. We're not going to foreclose any possibility that he may have gotten point, we don't know. One of the facts, though, that makes me a bit suspicious, at least of his motivations, is the fact that so many thousands and thousands of documents were stolen that have no bearing on the privacy interests of the American people, but they're of great interest militarily to the Russian military, Chinese military. So you have to wonder why Snowden would have stolen those documents. In terms of what will happen to him, I think the president made pretty clear in his speech the other day that you can't have a system where low-ranking or even high-ranking people in the intelligence community decide for themselves unilaterally, I don't like this policy or I don't like this program, I'm going to disclose classified information. You just can't protect a country that way. So I think that argues pretty strongly against any idea that the president is about to give him clemency.
All right, Congressman Adam Schiff, we appreciate the time. Have a good one.
You bet.